Chapter 5. Francis Darter's Statement. Francis M. Darter was a brilliant civil engineer and an avid student of the Scriptures. He was strong-minded with a firm conviction of the gospel, and because of it he had the rare distinction of being excommunicated twice from the LDS Church. He wrote many books and pamphlets and often included information on the One Mighty and Strong. Because of his extensive research and willingness to share the fruits thereof, even at the possible sacrifice of his church membership, we can gain much by reading what he has recorded. Therefore, this chapter will include extracts pertaining to the One Mighty and Strong from his book entitled Redemption of Zion. A Mighty and Strong One. Does Holy Writ refer to a future spiritual leader as a mighty and strong one? Yes. In the 28th chapter of Isaiah we find a detailed record foretelling the Lord sending forth a mighty and strong one to bring a blessing to the righteous, but judgment against the wicked, the oppressor and the slothful servant. His mission will be in the last generation, in that day, among a certain people who will be living in the Fat Valley, a people who are of Ephraim. Their organizations will possess priests and prophets. Isaiah refers not to the faithful and strong but to the weak ones among these people as the drunkards of Ephraim. He intimates, in fact he tells us, that these drunkards are not drunk with wine, but that they err in vision and that they stumble in judgment. Isaiah 28 verses 1-7. The Lord, through Isaiah, informs us that he is unable to teach this certain faction of his people for they have refused to wean themselves from the breast. They remain contented with the milk portion of the gospel. He says, "Whom shall he teach knowledge? And whom shall he make to understand doctrine? Them that are weaned from the milk, and drawn from the breast." The record clearly indicates that the Lord prefers to give to the whole of these people the meat portion of the gospel, but he tells us he can give it only to those who have progressed beyond the ABC class, to those who are weaned from the milk. Paul, in his day, also found saints who were in the same condition. I quote him, "We have many things to say, and hard to be uttered, seeing ye are dull of hearing. For when for the time ye ought to be teachers, ye have need that one teach you again which be the first principles of the oracles of God, and are become such as have need of milk, and not of strong meat. For every one that useth milk is unskillful in the word of righteousness, for he is a babe. But strong meat belongeth to them that are of full age, even those who by reason of use have their senses exercised to discern both good and evil." Hebrews 5 verses 11-14. Isaiah most positively identifies and pronounces judgments against a portion of our Latter-day Saints. We often hear that certain portion of our people say, "All is well in Zion," and they make the excuse that the saints are not ready for these deeper things in Holy Writ. But Isaiah says that the error lies not with the layman but that the priest and the prophet have erred in their failure to teach the layman the deeper portions of the gospel and inform their people of the actual inward conditions and judgments to come. These spiritually weak ones are continually reminding us of the words of wisdom, tithing, church origin, tithing and words of wisdom. I ask the question, what is wisdom? Does it not also include a responsibility to inform ourselves of the entire Word of God? The argument they advance, namely, that it isn't time to discuss these certain scriptures openly, has no foundation now, for the time is at hand for their fulfillment. To know what is in the Book of Mormon is an actual requirement of us before we shall receive the sealed portions of that book. We are also told that the glory of God is intelligence, and that we cannot be saved in our ignorance. While speaking of the Book of Mormon, do you realize that the entire 29th chapter of Isaiah describes the coming forth of the original plates of that record and the attitude of the people against the Book of Mormon? Isaiah also in his 33rd chapter refers to this Zion as being very far off from Jerusalem. 33:13-17. If the 29th chapter of Isaiah refers to our people and nation, then it is very feasible that the May 28th likewise. Many of our weak members are now refusing to be guided by the written counsel of the Lord. They prefer their own methods. Isaiah may have also referred to the saints' rejection or rather their failure to live the united order in Zion. They preferred to live alone, with every man struggling to obtain possession of a portion of the world at any price. Therefore, there is no rest, single-handed schemes are all on an uphill grade, except with the small minority. We are now trying to live the law of tithing, but things are not right and the masses are not satisfied. If everything had been left as the Lord gave it through the prophet Joseph Smith, we would be shining as a beacon light from a mountain top. The sending out of missionaries to the world would not be necessary, for the light would be so great that the honest in heart would find us. I do not want to give out the impression that all have gone out of the way. We have several hundreds of thousands of the finest saints and elders in Israel that ever lived in mortality, but it is the minority, the overbearing, the oppressor, the hypocrite and the weak ones among us to whom the Lord is referring. Brigham Young foretold our present conditions. He said that if we ever gave up polygamy and the united order, the latter meaning, in a general way, that every man must work and be in many respects on an equal footing with his brother, that our progress cannot advance as God wishes for it to advance. He further stated that, if this people do not accept and live the principles of the united order, they will not be acceptable to the Lord. I do not want to live to see the sufferings that this people will have to pass through if they reject the united order. Dedicatorial Sermon, St. George Temple. John Taylor tells us that Joseph Smith predicted the same thing. John Taylor's address at Centerville, June 11, 1883, History Records, Volume 6, page 233, History of John Taylor, page 99. Isaiah continues to identify the Latter-day Saints. Therefore thus saith the Lord God, Behold, I lay in Zion for a foundation a stone, a tried stone, a precious cornerstone, a sure foundation. He that believeth shall not make haste. Isaiah 28 verse 16. Question: was Joseph Smith commanded to build a cornerstone of Zion? Yes. The Nauvoo stake, temple and the Nauvoo house were to be one of these cornerstones. I quote in part, I say unto you, that you are now called immediately to make a solemn proclamation of my gospel, and of this state which I have planted to be a cornerstone of Zion. D&C 124:2, the center and most precious cornerstone of God's near future kingdom has also been promised our people, as referred to by Isaiah. It is called Zion and is to be built at Independence, Missouri, within the generation of 1832, which event can be but a few years off. D&C 57:1-5, 84:1-5. The mission of the mighty and strong one will include the arranging by lot the inheritances of the saints. Holy Writ tells us, and it shall be called the New Jerusalem, a land of peace, a city of refuge, a place of safety for the saints of the Most High God, and the glory of the Lord shall be there. And the terror of the Lord shall be there, insomuch that the wicked shall not come unto it, and it shall be called Zion. And it shall come to pass among the wicked, that every man that will not take his sword against his neighbor must needs flee unto Zion for safety. And there shall be gathered unto it out of every nation under heaven, and it shall be the only people that shall not be at war one with another. And it shall be said among the wicked, Let us not go up to battle against Zion, for the inhabitants of Zion are terrible, wherefore we cannot stand. D&C 45:66-70, Ether 13:4-8, 3 Nephi 21:22-29. Isaiah continues, Judgment also will I lay to the line, and righteousness to the plummet, and the hail shall sweep away the refuge of lies, and the water shall overflow the hiding place. And your covenant with death shall be disannulled, and your agreement with hell shall not stand. When the overflowing scourge shall pass through, then ye shall be trodden down by it. From the time that it goeth forth it shall take you, for morning by morning shall it pass over, by day and by night, and it shall be a vexation only to understand the report. For the bed is shorter than that a man can stretch himself on it, and the covering narrower than that he can wrap himself in it. Isaiah 28 verses 17-20, the language here used most certainly indicates that we have adopted a platform or policy that is too narrow to satisfy our God. What is this covenant with death and agreement with hell? Have the Latter-day Saints made such an agreement? It is safe to say that any party who seeks to obstruct or force a people from living the law of God is spiritually called hell, and that any agreement with this party to abandon the laws of God is a covenant with death. Now this agreement was made with our nation whom we honor, and should be wholly lived up to. It is also a closed issue and should not be referred to, but is quoted here solely to further identify the Latter-day Saints as the people to whom the Lord has promised to send a mighty and strong one. The craving for interest and carnal securities and their wrecking consequence has sunk its fangs so deep among our people that it appears that there is but one hope left, which lies within the future power and mission of the man who is to gather the saints to Zion like unto Moses, D&C 103:11-18. And the one mighty and strong who is to arrange by lot the inheritances of the saints in Zion, and set in order the house of God, D&C 85:6-7, and the latter-day Elias, who must come and restore all things. D&C 77:14. It is, therefore, very evident that the Lord has foreseen our present conditions and has wisely and fatherly reserved ample room and sufficient rights either to assist or assume full control in guiding the helm of the old ship Zion, when it is redeemed in the land of Missouri, America. When that time comes, our whole system will be changed. We, as a people, have now planted ourselves in the stakes of Zion, particularly the fat valleys of Utah. We have surrounded ourselves with luxuries and have hoarded up great sums of treasures which have been invested in non-church property, saying to ourselves that surely these things will make us secure in the hour of need. It appears, however, that the Lord is not satisfied with the hearts of his saints and the treasures of his church being tied up in carnal and material securities and with no provisions for the home gathering of thousands of saints, the world over, who now desire to gather in before serious trouble begins, for he says through Isaiah, "Woe to the crown of pride, to the drunkards of Ephraim, whose glorious beauty is a fading flower, which are on the head of the fat valleys of them that are overcome with wine. Behold, the Lord hath a mighty and strong one, which is a tempest of hail and a destroying storm, as a flood of mighty waters overflowing, shall cast down to the earth with the hand. The crown of pride, the drunkards of Ephraim, shall be trodden under feet, and the glorious beauty, which is on the head of the fat valley, shall be a fading flower, and as the hasty fruit before the summer which when he that looketh upon it seeth, while it is yet in his hand he eateth it up. In that day shall the Lord of hosts be for a crown of glory, and for a diadem of beauty, unto the residue of his people. Those who are left after the Lord's scourges pass through them. And for a spirit of judgment to him that sitteth in judgment, and for strength to them that turn the battle to the gate." Isaiah 28:1-6. It is evident that the coming forth of this one mighty and strong will be connected with the final judgment of Israel and redemption of Zion. The main judgment is to fall upon the head valley and not on the valleys where Ephraim dwells. See verses 1 and 4. The one mighty and strong has been pictured by some writers as one who comes to destroy, but just as sure as there is a God, this great leader will be filled with the spirit of love and leadership to those who are living the gospel and are prepared for the final gathering. To those who are not prepared and are found taking advantage of the saints, the Lord has pronounced judgment through this mighty and strong one. His work will be to set in order the house of God and to arrange by lot the inheritances of the saints in Zion. In the days of Joseph Smith, an effort was made to establish and build up the center of Zion, in Missouri, but through wickedness and selfishness on the part of some, they failed. They broke their covenant with the Lord through transgression, covetousness, and feigned words. D&C 104:52. The article further states that the judgment pronounced in the Revelation referred to Edward Partridge, that he was the one whom the Lord threatened to destroy. In order that my readers may be able to draw their own conclusions regarding the character of Edward Partridge, I quote the Lord's own words in referring to this noble character. This revelation was given after the death of Partridge. Even as I did my servant David Patton, who is with me at this time, and also my servant Edward Partridge, D&C 124:19, Joseph Smith referred to Edward Partridge as a man without guile. Ch 1:392. We also find a letter from Joseph Smith to Edward Partridge and W.M. Phelps dated December 10, 1833, being 1 month after the fall of Zion, wherein the prophet exonerated these two certain brethren and referred to their righteousness and purity of motives. Ch. Volume 1, D&C 124:51-52, the fact that the Lord was also well pleased with him both 3 and 5 years later surely discredits the 1905 article. Ch. Volume 2, pages 302 to 303, D&C 115:1-9. During the July 1833 persecution of the saints, Edward Partridge was tarred and feathered, and 3 days later stepped out before the same mob and offered his body as a sacrifice if they would only spare the saints. Ch. Volume 1, pages 390 to 4 and 412. Edward Partridge lived 8 years after the fall of Zion, and in all of this time he lived a most holy life, and the Lord took him unto himself, as quoted above. It was the exposures received during the persecution in Missouri that hastened his death. In view of the evidence quoted and a great deal more that is known to those who are informed, and would be printed if space permitted, does it not seem strange that men of integrity would try to throw a cloud around Partridge's life in their desperate effort to annul a revelation that unquestionably has a future fulfillment? The first half of the 1905 article is summed up in these words, may also be considered as having passed away and the whole incident of the prophecy closed. In other words, it has no future fulfillment. The very fact that this one mighty and strong is to divide by lot the inheritance of the saints in Zion, and that the saints have not to this date received their inheritances, nor has that great and last holy temple been built in Independence, Missouri, all goes to conclusively prove that the mission of the one mighty and strong, and the man like as Moses and the great latter-day Elias, are yet future. The description of the building up of this holy city, the New Jerusalem, Zion, and temple was given by revelation on September 22, 1832. D&C 84th section, and 2 months later the revelation of the 85th section was given to Joseph Smith, which contained the details of the mission of this one mighty and strong to set in order the house of God, and to arrange by lot the inheritance of the saints in Zion. In other words, the 85th section was given to explain in what manner this final redemption and gathering shall be done and the appointed one to accomplish this great work. The one mighty and strong is to cleanse the house of God, which cleansing will include the high and low. Darter has leaned heavy on the prophet Isaiah and his description of a mighty and strong one, Isaiah 28 verse 2. He has tied him together with the one described in section 85 as being the same person and the same time. Darter has put Isaiah's description upon the Mormon people, how the people must be fed on milk instead of meat, how the prophets and priests have erred, how they made covenants with death, how they have abundant temporal wealth but lack in spiritual strength. Darter explains how all these events, as described by Isaiah, are destined to take place just prior to the final judgment, including the coming of the one mighty and strong. We have failed to live the gospel well enough so that we could receive an inheritance in Zion, so another attempt must be made. Only the chosen will be selected from among the millions called Latter-day Saints.